Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Monday, December the 13th. We got a 9-game Monday slate, and as always guys, we're going to go game by game. We're going to talk through each game on the slate and break down each team, kind of give my early thoughts, what I do like at first look on Sunday night. And then as we do go through each game, we'll build out kind of an early core, 5 guys that do stand out to me at first look. Now, as always, when it comes to NBA, you always have to pay attention to injury updates. You always have to pay attention to, starting lineups. Players get ruled out randomly. There's going to always be guys questionable. Once again, we have some questionable guys today. So we're going to have to pay attention to the injury news. I do provide a lot more updated content on Patreon. So if you really enjoy these, first look videos, you want to see more of my content, more stuff that I do have to offer, you can check that out. Link down below in the description. I do give my full updated core plays to Patreon members. They're usually posted about an hour before lock. I also post my positional plays, which are my favorite plays at each position. For DraftKings and for Yahoo, I do my rankings as well, which are my top 20 plays of the day, ranked in order of interest. Those are posted for DraftKings and for Yahoo. And then I also have a Discord chat you can join. So you can basically ask me questions anytime during the day, before lock, after lock, whatever it may be, lineup specific questions, 1v1s, 2v2s. I'm always in Discord, trying to answer everyone's questions. So, check out the Patreon if you're interested in some of my exclusive content that I do offer. I also do give out some of my favorite picks each day on Prize Picks for Patreon members, and Prize Picks is the sponsor of this video. If you guys do want to check them out, link down below in the description, or you can just sign up and use code NOAH. When you do sign up with my code, they will give you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. In Prize Picks, they're more of a player prop based DFS site, so you're basically just picking the over or the under on players' projections. But you can take a look at what Prize Picks has to offer. You can see, their board for Monday's NBA games. They already have a little bit of stuff posted. They'll get a lot more, projections posted though as we do get closer to, to tip off on Monday. Usually Monday morning, you'll see their fantasy point projections posted. You can take a look at their board, make some picks, go over or under a player's projection. You have to make at least 2 picks, but you can make up to 5 picks, and you can win up to 10 extra money on Prize Picks. So if you guys want to check them out, sign up, use code NOAH, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. And again, if you want some of my favorite picks each day for Prize Picks, I do give those out for Patreon members. There's a lot of exclusive content I offer on Patreon. If that's also something that interests you, you can check that out in the description down below. But let's go ahead and take a look at Monday's 9-game slate. We're going to start off with the Miami and Cleveland game. So this is one that is really, not that appealing. 2 pretty slow-paced teams here, 2 pretty good defensive teams. With Miami, we know Jimmy and Bam are both going to be out again. So guys like Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, we can definitely look to, probably more tournament plays given where they're priced at. Both their prices have come up a little bit. The matchup against Cleveland's not great. Cleveland's been really good defensively this year. They play at a slow pace. But still, the upside is definitely there for a guy like Kyle Lowry. We've seen him go for 46 and 47 DK points in his last 2 games. We know if this game stays close that Lowry's going to play a lot of minutes, and he has the upside to pay off an 8K price point. I still do have interest in Lowry. I think Hero's fine as well. He's been coming off the bench lately, but he's still been getting pretty good minutes. Played 33 minutes last game. At 7,200, I'm fine with Hero as well. The rest of the Miami guys, though, I don't love it too much here. Like Dedmon at 5K. He had a great game last game against the Bulls, but man, Dedmon has just been so inconsistent lately. His minutes have also been inconsistent. We saw before last game he had only played 21 and 13 minutes the games before that. Now going up against Cleveland, Cleveland is a team that does play really big. They're usually going to have one of Jared Allen or Evan Mobley on the floor at all times. So you would think this is a spot where Dedmon's probably going to have to play minutes. I mean, last time they did play Cleveland, he did play 31 minutes. So I think we probably get like 30 minutes from Dwayne Dedmon at 5K. He is definitely in play. I don't think it's a guarantee that he plays 30 minutes, which does make him a riskier option, but he's still playable because he, if he does get the minutes, he can produce, and we've seen that. Duncan Robinson, I mean, you know what he's going to do. He's going to shoot the ball. You just got to hope that he makes his shots. The last game, he shot the ball really well. 9 for 13, had 33 DK points. We've seen games when Duncan Robinson doesn't shoot the ball well. He can put up 15 DK points, 9 DK points. The ceiling on a guy like Duncan Robinson isn't insanely high, but at 4,300, I think he's still in play. He's not like my favorite value or anything, but he's playable on this slate. And the rest of Miami, I'm probably off of. Gabe Vincent, started last game. He probably starts again. He did play 31 minutes. He was really productive, had 32 DK points. I don't know if we should expect that kind of production from Gabe Vincent, but if he does wind up starting again at 4,200, he's a playable value. But I don't know if there's like any core options coming from Miami. And on the Cleveland side, you could probably say the same thing. The matchup against Miami is not great. Again, this is a slow-paced game. I really don't want to be loading up on this game in general. But guys like Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, always appealing in tournaments just because they, for the most part, they're always going to come in fairly low owned given where they're priced at. I would expect on this slate, everyone on Cleveland is going to be low owned. So if you want to play a low owned Allen or Garland or Mobley, I'm fine with it. But those are probably the only guys I think I'd be rostering from Cleveland today. So we can move on to the next game, the Warriors and the Pacers. So on the Warriors, I think it's really just Curry and Draymond for me. Curry at 11-4 doesn't really stand out as a great pay-up option, but we know the ceiling is always there for Steph. When he gets hot, he can just put up massive games. I think he needs like 7 or 8 more threes to pass Ray Allen's record, so he's probably got that in the back of his head right now. He's trying to break that record. He's going to be chucking threes. He's playable, but Curry's never a guy I feel like I ever have to pay up for, especially when he's 11-4. Whenever Curry's closely priced to Giannis and Jokic, it's just really hard to play Curry over those guys. He just doesn't project nearly as well. So Curry's just more of a tournament play. Draymond's kind of the same thing. Draymond's been so inconsistent this year. We have seen a ceiling from Draymond. He'll have random games where he does put up, close to a triple-double, but you've also seen a lot of very disappointing and bad outings from Draymond. At 6,800, he's playable, but I don't love Draymond on this slate, and really, the Warriors as a team, I'm just not that interested in today. Now, on the Indiana side, with the Pacers, the Pacers are not a team I love either. Everyone on the Pacers feels priced where they should be. I think Malcolm Brogdon would probably be my favorite play from Indiana. If I had to play anyone here, he's only 7,900. We know if this game's close that Brogdon's going to play 36, 38 minutes. He still is not like a great play at his price tag. Golden State's been playing really good defense this year. They do play at a pretty fast pace, so this is definitely a pace-up spot for Indiana. But, Golden State's been good defensively. I don't love Brogdon, but if I had to play anyone on Indiana, it probably would be him. Sabonis, I think, is too expensive. LeVert's prices come up a lot. He's been playing really well lately, but, where his price is at now, I don't love LeVert. Duarte at 4,500, I'm not a big fan of either. So, this game as well, I just don't really like that much. Honestly, a lot of these first few early games, I'm just not that interested in. The Sacramento and Toronto, I think we could see some potential value here. So we're going to have to pay attention to what Sacramento's starting lineup is. They did start Marvin Bagley last game, and if Marvin Bagley were to start again, I think he'd be a pretty good value play. Now, he only played 22 minutes in the starting lineup. He wasn't super productive. But we've seen when Marvin Bagley does get minutes that he can be fairly productive on a point-per-minute basis. He's 3,800. If he winds up starting again, I think Marvin Bagley would probably be my favorite play from Sacramento. Terrence Davis went back to the bench. They went with Bagley over Terrence Davis, and Davis only played 18 minutes. He had been playing really well, at least for fantasy. He had been producing really well in the starting lineup, but if he comes off the bench again, it's going to be really hard to get to Terrence Davis. Obviously, if he's coming off the bench, you just really don't know what his minutes are going to look like. I'm assuming they start Bagley again, but we'll just have to wait and see. But like Fox, Halliburton, Buddy Hield, I don't know if any of these guys really stand out at their prices. I think 5,700 for Halliburton could be fine. If this game is close, I do expect Halliburton to play a lot of minutes. The matchup against Toronto, I would say, not ideal, but you've seen in close games lately, you've been getting 36, close to 40 minutes from Halliburton. 5,700, I think he's probably my favorite of the the three guys here, Fox, Halliburton, Hield. I think Halliburton's the guy I like most there, given the price. And then Harrison Barnes, so he's played 3 games since coming back from his injury, his foot injury. First game, he was pretty solid against Orlando, but then the last 2 against Charlotte and Cleveland, he's not been great. Just 26 and 25 minutes, just 14 and 20 DK points. The price tag on Harrison Barnes, though, is really appealing. He's only 5,100. We were paying almost $7K for Harrison Barnes at the beginning of the year. I know he hasn't been producing at the same rate as of late, but I want to say that Harrison Barnes is better than a $5,100 player. I think most nights Harrison Barnes is going to play low to mid-30s minutes, and he's going to average close to a fantasy point per minute. So at 5,100, I think he is still a little bit too cheap, even though he hasn't been playing that well lately. I kind of still like Harrison Barnes as a cheaper option. But Marvin Bagley would definitely be the value play to go to here if he winds up starting again. We'll just have to wait and see with that Sacramento starting lineup. If they decide to go back to Terrence Davis in the starting lineup, then I think at 4,100, Terrence Davis would be a pretty decent value play. But moving on to the other side of this game with Toronto. So it is a really good matchup here for Toronto. The Kings this year have been playing at a pretty fast pace. They're actually 5th in pace so far this season, and they've been really bad defensively as well, towards the bottom of the league in defensive rating. So guys like Van Vliet, Siakam, and Scotty Barnes, I think have upside here. They're going to play a lot of minutes if the game's close. We know that for sure. Van Vliet's been getting, I'm pretty sure he actually leads the league in minutes this season. He's been playing almost 40 minutes a night in close games. He feels priced where he should be at 9K, but the upside is definitely there in a really good matchup like this. Same could be said for Siakam. Same could be said for Scotty Barnes. I don't think any of those three guys project great at their price tags, but they're all in play just because they're going to get so many minutes, and the matchup is very, very favorable. Same could be said for Gary Trent at 6K, although Trent probably more of a dart throw. Not as much confidence in Trent as I am the other three guys. And then I do want to mention Chris Boucher. So Chris Boucher has been starting lately. He did start again last game, played 27 minutes, had 26 DK points. If they decide to keep Chris Boucher in the starting lineup, if he starts once again, I think at 4,300 he is pretty good value play. I mean, his minutes have been really, really up and down this year with Toronto. You never know how many minutes Boucher is going to play. It doesn't seem like Nick Nurse really likes him that much. He never really plays him much at all, but he's been starting. In the last two games he has started, he's played 22 and 27 minutes. So I think that's really all that we need to see. If he starts again, I think we get 25, 28 minutes from Boucher. And at 4,300 against the Kings, I mean, Boucher looks like one of the better value plays at first look. I kind of like him on this slate. 4,300 on DK, and he is pretty cheap on Yahoo if you want to play him there, $14. I definitely like Boucher on the slate as a kind of first look value. And that's probably it though from Toronto. I think that's really all that I'm looking to here. So we can move on to the next game, talk about Milwaukee and Boston. So looking at Milwaukee, at the top you got Giannis for 11,600. Giannis, any slate he is on, he is going to be a top option. I think that's once again the case here, even in a less than ideal matchup against the Celtics. I think Giannis still at this point is matchup proof. I don't care who's guarding him. I don't care what team he's going up against. I'll play Giannis basically any slate. I really just want the game to be close so that way Giannis plays his full minutes. And I think going up against the Celtics, this game should stay close to where Giannis does play 34, 35 minutes. And if he gets those minutes, we know he's going to be productive when he's on the court. I know Al Horford, has defended Giannis pretty well in the past, but I still think this, I wouldn't say the matchup's great, but I still think the minutes that Giannis should get in a close game like this is enough for me to want to roster him, especially on this slate where, outside of Giannis and Jokic, I mean, there's not a ton of standout pay-up options. I would definitely consider Giannis one of the better pay-up options in general today. And then you got Drew and Middleton, who are fine options, but neither one stand out at their price points. Usually when Giannis is healthy, I rarely play Drew. I rarely play Middleton. I usually never play Bobby Portis. Portis has been great this year, but I'm not going to pay $7,200 for Bobby Portis, especially when Giannis is healthy. And I think that could be said for all the other Bucks. So for me, it's really just Giannis, and that's it from Milwaukee. Now on the Boston side, I don't love a ton here. Jaylen Brown's going to be back for this game, so that's definitely going to hurt Jason Tatum a little bit. Now Tatum's been great lately, even with Jaylen Brown in the lineup, but I think his upside is a little bit higher when you do get Brown off the floor, just because his usage will go up. He'll have the ball in his hand so much. At 9,400 though, I think Tatum is a fine tournament play. I don't think he stands out as a priority pay-up option for me, but definitely viable just because we know the upside's there. And he is coming in a little bit more affordable than he normally is. Jaylen Brown, I have zero interest in. He's just been not great since he's come back from this injury, and at 9,100, I'm just not going to pay that price tag for Jaylen Brown. Al Horford at 6,600 is okay. I don't think he really stands out on this slate, but he's playable. He should get around 30, 35 minutes. He should be the primary defender on Giannis here. As long as he stands out of foul trouble, I think the minutes will be there. I just don't know, how productive he'll be. The rest of the Celtics, though, I'm not really that interested in. Marcus Smart, I think, is questionable. Okay, he's probable, so he's expected to play. Yeah, I just don't see much here. I think it's really just Tatum for Boston, for me at least, and that's probably it. So we can move on to the next game, Houston and Atlanta. So looking at Houston today, you got Christian Wood, 9,300. Christian Wood on this slate, I don't think it's really a standout play. I don't love the matchup against Atlanta. I don't love the matchup against Clint Capella. We know Wood, though, if this game is close, is going to play probably 35, 36 minutes. I still don't think he really stands out at 9,300. I think you're definitely overpaying for Christian Wood at this point. I think he should be priced around 8,500. He's just more of a tournament play. He should be really low owned, but I don't think he really stands out. Jayshawn Tate at 6,100, I do kind of like. Now, he's had some pretty disappointing games lately, but the price tag has come down on Jayshawn Tate a little bit. And I think without Kevin Porter Jr., without Jalen Green, there is definitely going to be more opportunity available for Jayshawn Tate. The minutes should be there. He only played 25 minutes last game, but I do think most games, when he's not in foul trouble, we're probably going to get 33, 34 minutes from Jayshawn Tate. And we've seen this guy does have a pretty good ceiling. And I think without KPJ, he's going to have the ball in his hands more. We have seen his assist numbers be pretty good these last few games. 7, 5, 9 assists. At 6,100, I kind of do have some interest in Jayshawn Tate as a tournament play. Eric Gordon rested last game, or he didn't rest, but he was out for a groin injury. He'll be back today. At 5,300, I think Eric Gordon is priced where he should be. But without KPJ, Eric Gordon's going to have the ball in his hands more. He's definitely playable on this slate. And then the rest of the Rockets, Armani Brooks came off the bench last game. He had been starting, but they brought him off the bench last game. He still did play a lot of minutes, though, 34 minutes. Keep an eye on the starting lineup for Houston. If Armani Brooks does not start, I would probably not be interested in him at 4,800. But if he does move back in the starting lineup, I think he is a viable cheap play. Now, I don't know if he's going to be a guy that averages a fantasy point per minute like he has been these last few games. But I think if he does wind up starting, we probably will get low 30s minutes. And at 4,800, he would be in play for me as a value if he starts. That's probably it, though, from Houston. Don't think I see really anything else that stands out here. So moving on to the Atlanta side. Really good spot here for these Atlanta guys. So far this year, Houston been playing at the fastest pace in the league. And, defensively, they're not a team you should be worried about defensively at all. So I think Trae Young as a tournament option makes a lot of sense. Trae Young's been pretty consistent lately. He's normally not a guy that we consider a consistent guy. Like you've seen so far this year, Trae Young can definitely put up disappointing games. But, man, you look at his game log. He's got at least 47 DK points in 9 straight games. Like he's been super, super consistent, at least 55 DK points in 3 straight games. We know Trae Young's going to play a lot of minutes as long as this game is close, which is a big if because, Houston's so bad. They get blown out a lot. But if we do get full minutes from Trae Young, 36, 38 minutes, against this Houston team that plays really fast, there's a lot of upside here for Trae Young. Now, I don't think he's as good of a pay-up option as Jokic or Giannis, but I think Trae is definitely in play for me. And normally I'm not a Trae guy. Like I don't play Trae that often, but I think on this slate, he does look pretty appealing. I think Clint Capella in a good matchup at 7,800 makes a lot of sense. This is one of those spots where I think Clint Capella could definitely, dominate on the boards. We've seen him have some massive games rebounding-wise. He can get you 18, 20 rebounds. He can get you a big double-double. He can block shots as well. At 7,800, probably more of a tournament play, but definitely viable for me. Probably it, though, from Atlanta. Like, I don't think I'd be playing John Collins or Kevin Huerter or anyone else on this Atlanta team. I think it's just Trae and Capella, and that's probably it from the Hawks. Next game, though, Philly and Memphis. So looking at the Sixers today, Joel Embiid, 11K. I think it's a decent pay-up option today. Now, I wouldn't consider him a top pay-up option. Again, I would rather play Jokic. I'd rather play Giannis. But I think this is a pretty good spot for Joel Embiid. Right now, Steven Adams is doubtful for Memphis, so Steven Adams not going to be out there. It's probably going to be either Xavier Tillman or Jaren Jackson Jr. if he plays. One of those guys is going to be guarding Embiid, and obviously that is a winnable matchup for him. At this point, Embiid is matchup-proof, but I think without Steven Adams, that probably helps Embiid a little bit. He feels priced where he should be, though, at 11K. He should be really low-owned on a bigger slate like this, but I think Embiid is definitely playable. I don't love anything else from Philly, though. Like, when Embiid's healthy, I just rarely play any of these other Sixers. And on a 9-game slate, I just don't think I'm going to be rostering any of these guys. I think Embiid's the only main priority for me from Philly. He's the only guy I really have that much interest in. On the Memphis side, though, we are going to have to pay attention to the status of Jaren Jackson Jr., so this is pretty big news. He is currently questionable, and we did get word that Steven Adams is doubtful, so they could be pretty shorthanded in the front court. They're already without Brandon Clark, who plays a decent amount of minutes, and then obviously they're missing their high usage player, their star player in Ja Morant. So if we do get no Jaren Jackson Jr. and assuming Steven Adams is out as well, you would probably see a lot of minutes for Xavier Tillman. Now, the matchup is really, really tough against Embiid. This is obviously not a great spot. This is a spot where Xavier Tillman could get in a lot of foul trouble. But I think he's going to have to play minutes. He's basically going to have to play until he fouls out, especially if Jaren Jackson Jr. is out. Now, if Jaren Jackson Jr. plays, we could maybe see them start Jaren Jackson Jr. at center and then, maybe start like Kyle Anderson. But for now, I'm expecting Xavier Tillman to start in place of Steven Adams with him being doubtful. If Xavier Tillman starts at 3,400, he's going to project out as probably one of the better value plays on the slate, even in a tougher matchup. So I definitely like Tillman as a value. I think he looks pretty good on Yahoo as well. He has minimum salary over there. You can play him at center. I think he stands out as a really strong value overall. If he does wind up coming off the bench, like if Jaren Jackson Jr. plays and then they start him at center, if they start Triple J at center, then I probably would be less interested in Tillman. He'd still be playable. I just wouldn't have as much confidence in him. If Jaren Jackson Jr. plays, I worry about foul trouble here for him. Like if Jaren Jackson Jr. is playing center and he's guarding Embiid, he might foul out in like 20 minutes. Like we know We know Triple J has a ton of issues with fouls. That's something he always struggles with, and Embiid is one of the best centers at drawing fouls. I would definitely be scared to go to Triple J here, but I think his upside would be higher with Steven Adams off the floor just because he would be getting a lot of minutes at center, which should help his rebounding numbers, should help his fantasy production overall. But the foul trouble against Embiid is a huge, huge concern. That does make him a pretty risky option, but he's still playable because I think the upside is there if he does stay out of foul trouble. Desmond Bane, though, at 6,600, I don't love at this price point. I think he's playable, but now that Dylan Brooks is back, I don't want to pay nearly $7K for Desmond Bane. Tyus Jones, I think, is priced probably where he should be. I think Dylan Brooks at 6,200 stands out as a pretty decent play. He should get like 33, 35 minutes if this game stays close. We've seen a pretty low floor from Dylan Brooks this year. We've seen a lot of games where he just really comes out and disappoints, but we know he's going to go out there and shoot the ball a ton. He's not a great shooter, but he's going to shoot it a lot with John Morant off the floor. He can get you defensive stats as well. He's another guy that kind of struggles with foul trouble, but if he can stay out of foul trouble and he plays his normal 34, 35 minutes, I think it's 6,200. Dylan Brooks is definitely playable for me on this slate. And then Kyle Anderson, if he winds up starting, like let's say Steven Adams is out, which should be the case since he's doubtful, and they start Jaren Jackson Jr. at center, and then they may slide Kyle Anderson in at power forward. If Kyle Anderson were to start, he would definitely be in play even at 5,300. He did start last game with Triple J out, played 31 minutes, had 37 DK points. Kyle Anderson always been pretty productive when he does get minutes, so I think he would be in play for me if he winds up starting. And that's probably it from Memphis, I think. I don't see too much I really like here outside of the guys we just talked about. If Steven Adams is out, which is he's doubtful, and we do get Xavier Tillman starting at center, I think it's a riskier value just because the matchup against Embiid is really, really tough. You worry about foul trouble, but Tillman is definitely a high upside value play, and he's definitely way too cheap if he does wind up starting. But that's it for that game. We can move on to the next one, talk about Charlotte and Dallas. So looking at Charlotte today, they're going to be getting some guys back today. So PJ Washington was out last game. He is currently questionable, so he could maybe be back. We already know that Terry Rozier is off COVID protocol, so Terry Rozier is going to play today, which is definitely important. We will talk about Terry Rozier in a second. They also do have Nick Richards back. So Nick Richards was out last game for illness. He is back for this one. Really, the only guys that are still out are LaMelo, Plumlee, Ish, and McDaniels. But really, getting Terry Rozier back, I think, is pretty big. It's definitely going to hurt some of these guys that we've been playing. So Kelly Oubre, Miles Bridges, Gordon Hayward. I think all these guys take a bump down with Rozier back, especially like Oubre. I mean, Oubre's been playing great lately, but I'd assume that either Oubre or Cody Martin's going to go back to the bench. It's probably going to be Cody Martin that goes back to the bench, but we'll have to wait and see. Oubre's obviously been playing a ton of minutes. He's been crushing lately. 8,400 though, like there's no way I'm playing Oubre on this slate, especially if he winds up going back to the bench with Rozier in. Miles Bridges at 8K I think is still fine. I think Gordon Hayward's still fine, just because I do expect these guys to still play a lot of minutes. I just think, with Rozier now in the mix and taking usage away from these guys, I think their upside's a little bit limited, but they're definitely still playable. Oubre, though, I'd probably be off of at his price tag. Rozier, though, himself, I do like quite a bit. So 7,200 for Rozier. He's someone that I kind of like at first look on the slate. Now, we're going to have to wait and see if there's any sort of minutes limit on him, if he's going to be on any sort of restriction, but, on Yahoo, $28, on DK at 7,200. If he's full go, I think he does have a lot of upside here, especially with LaMelo out. Without LaMelo, Terry Rozier is going to have the ball in his hands more. He's going to get more usage. He should take more shots. Again, minutes-wise, if he's full go, he should play 36, 38 minutes. We know the Hornets are going to run a really tight rotation. They're going to give their main guys big minutes every night. Rozier, I think he only missed 2 or 3 games. I think he missed 3 games. He's been out for a couple weeks. I think it's 2 weeks he's been out now. But I'd assume that he was, still staying in good shape. I doubt he was just sitting on the couch, for those 2 weeks. I'm sure he was still training, still in good shape. I'm expecting him to play his full minutes. Now, if we do get word that Rozier is going to be limited, obviously I'll get off of him at that point. But if we get a full go Rozier at 7,200 without LaMelo, I think Rozier looks like a pretty appealing tournament play. I don't think he gets a ton of ownership today. He's for sure one of my favorite plays from Charlotte. Definitely like him quite a bit today. PJ Washington, at his price tag, though, I'm off of. I think with Rozier back, that probably takes me off of Cody Martin, especially now that he's up to 6,500. That's probably it for Charlotte. They're not nearly as appealing now that the prices have come up and that Rozier is back as well. But I think Rozier is still in play. I do like him a lot. And I think, Miles Bridges, Gordon Hayward are still fine. Oubre, though, at 8,400, I'd probably be off of with Rozier back. And I think, Cody Martin, especially if he goes back to the bench, I definitely would be off Cody Martin. I do still expect these guys to play pretty good minutes, but they're not going to play enough to where they're worth their price tags at this point. But moving on to the Dallas side, so Dallas we do know is going to be without Luka once again. Luka was out on Sunday. This is a back-to-back for Dallas. Without Luka, we kind of know who the main beneficiaries are. Kristaps Porzingis, Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr. Jalen Brunson is definitely the first guy that stands out from Dallas. 5,800 on Draftkings. I mean, it's just way too cheap. On Yahoo, he looks like a really good play over there as well. He's way too cheap on Yahoo, only $19. We know that when Luka's out, Brunson usually winds up starting. He started, obviously, in place of him on Sunday against OKC. Had a really good game, played 31 minutes. I think he did get pulled a little bit early in that game because it was a blowout. They did win by 19. He still scored 33 DK points, though. Brunson's been really productive this year, even playing alongside Luka, and now with Luka off the floor, Brunson's production just skyrockets. He's a fantasy point per minute player that's going to get low to mid 30s minutes and a great matchup against a fast-paced Hornets team. Love Jalen Brunson today. He's going to be massive chalk, but I think it's chalk that I'm just fine eating. I think Porzingis at 8K is definitely a guy we can look to. I think his upside is definitely higher without Luka. Now, he did not have a great game against OKC on Sunday, just 30 minutes, 27 DK points. This is a back-to-back, so keep an eye on the injury report. I'd assume Porzingis plays today, but we have seen, they just randomly ruled him out at times. It wouldn't be surprising if they sit him here, but if Porzingis plays at 8K, I think he is a good tournament play. I don't think he's going to project super well at his price point, but given the matchup against Charlotte, given how bigs have been able to kill Charlotte this year, I think the upside is definitely there for Porzingis, especially without Luka. And then Tim Hardaway is a fine play coming off the bench. He's kind of scoring dependent, but in a fast-paced game against Charlotte or in a big-time pace-up spot against Charlotte, I think the upside's a little bit higher for Tim Hardaway in a matchup like this. That's really it, though, from Dallas. I think the standout plays here are definitely Brunson and Porzingis. We can move on to the next game, though, talk about Washington and Denver. So looking at Washington today, Bradley Beal, 8,400. Normally I'm not in love with any Wizards, but I think with Kyle Kuzma out once again, Bradley Beal and Spencer Dinwiddie are two guys that we can look to. The matchup against Denver is not great, but I think Bradley Beal, if this game is close, is going to play 35, 36 minutes, if not more than that. I think his upside's a little bit higher without Kuzma on the floor. Now, last game without Kuzma, it was not great for Bradley Beal. They got the crap beat out of him by Utah, but I think at 8,400, Bradley Beal does make sense in tournaments. He's going to be really low owned, I'd assume. Spencer Dinwiddie was really bad last game without Kuzma, and he's just been really bad this year in general. Has not been productive at all, but I think his upside's a little bit higher without Kuzma. I mean, Kuzma is a somewhat high-usage player, so taking him off the floor should allow for Dinwiddie to benefit. He's only 5,200. I think Dinwiddie's playable on this slate. And then lastly, I do want to mention Deni Avdija. So Deni Avdija did start in place of Kuzma. He only played 23 minutes. I don't know how many minutes he plays here, but I think he does start again and probably gets like mid-20s, maybe up close to 30 minutes. He's only 3,500. The price tag really didn't move. I think Deni Avdija is playable. I think we'll probably get better value open up as the day goes on, but if you do need a cheap forward, assuming he starts again for Kuzma, I think Deni Avdija is definitely in play. It's probably it, though, from Washington. Harrell and Gafford, I don't love here. I think they're going to have to play big minutes because they're going to need him out there guarding Jokic, but Harrell against Jokic is a huge mismatch. I don't think Harrell's going to be out there. I think they're probably going to want to play Gafford as much as possible, but I definitely worry about foul trouble for Gafford here. He could pick up a lot of fouls going up against Jokic, but I think if he does stay out of foul trouble, the upside is definitely there for Gafford at 4,700, but again, not a guy that I'd really be running to roster on a 9-game slate. I think Washington in general, you're just looking at tournament plays here. There's probably nothing that stands out as like a core option, but Beal, Dinwiddie, Avdija, these are guys you could definitely throw in your pool in tournaments. But moving on to the Denver side, so Jokic at 12K, really, really expensive, but I think Jokic is a top pay-up option today. I mean, he definitely stands out as one of the best pay-up options in general. Matchup against Washington, I think is pretty good for him. Washington, they've been really good defensively this year, but against big men, going up against Gafford and Montrezl Harrell, this is a matchup that Jokic can easily win in. I think he's going to, crush here. He's obviously expensive, but the price tag at this point I don't think really matters for Jokic. We know the massive floor and the massive ceiling that he has on a nightly basis just makes him an auto play almost any slate. Especially against this Wizards team that I don't really think has an answer for him. Jokic should once again crush. We'll have to wait and see what other value opens up. Right now, we already do have a decent amount of value. If we get even more value during the day, it's going to be pretty easy to pay up for Jokic. He's by far my favorite pay up option today. If I have to choose just one stud to play tonight, I think it would be Jokic just at first look. Really, really like Jokic here. For sure, my favorite play from Denver. Outside of Jokic, I'm not too in love with anyone else on the Nuggets. Will Barton did not play last game. He's questionable once again. If Will Barton doesn't play, you could maybe look to guys like Aaron Gordon or Monte Morris, but at their price points, I really don't think they stand out. I think it's just Jokic for me, and that's really it from Denver. Talking about the last game of the night, though, Phoenix and LA. So looking at Phoenix here, big news, we're going to have to keep an eye on the status of DeAndre Ayton. So DeAndre Ayton was questionable last game and did not play. We saw JaVale McGee wind up starting at center, and JaVale McGee went absolutely nuts. He played 26 minutes, had 48 Draftkings points. Look, JaVale McGee, he's a really productive player when he gets minutes, and without DeAndre Ayton last game and without Frank Kaminsky as well, they're going to play JaVale McGee as many minutes as he can handle. Now, he's not normally a guy that you see play like a lot of minutes. Normally, he only plays like low to mid-20s, but I think high 20s is pretty likely for him. I think 24, 25 minutes for JaVale McGee is definitely on the table, and at 4K, like that's still way too cheap for JaVale McGee if he's starting again in place of Ayton. So if Ayton gets ruled out, I think JaVale McGee will be a great value play. I think that would give a slight boost to Jay Crowder as well, but I wouldn't love Crowder. Chris Paul, with Devin Booker still out, I think Chris Paul is a tournament option, makes sense. Now, he hasn't been great without Booker. We haven't really seen a ton of great games from Chris Paul. I mean, you look at the last 4 games without Booker, his best game was 44 DK points, and that's not really getting the job done at 8,300. But I think the upside is definitely there for Chris Paul. Without Booker, he's going to have the ball in his hands more. He's playable. He's a tournament option. Doesn't really stand out, but he's viable on this slate. Really, though, from Phoenix, it's just wait and see here with Ayton. If Ayton gets ruled out, then yeah, JaVale McGee I would like a lot as a value play. Now, on the Clippers side, we know the Clippers probably should be without Paul George once again. He's listed as doubtful, so Paul George not expected to play. With Paul George out, or not expected to play, we kind of know where to go to. Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann, like these are the guys we want to be rostering, and they're all cheap. Like I don't know what DraftKings is doing, but 5,900 for Reggie Jackson. Like I think Reggie Jackson looks like a really good play today at this price point. I mean, the matchup against Phoenix is not great. Phoenix has been great defensively this year. They're playing at a pretty fast pace, but the defensive matchup is tough. This game has a little bit of blowout risk, I would say. But I think at 5,900, Reggie Jackson is definitely too cheap today with Paul George expected to be out. Luke Kennard's price tag came up to 4,900, but he had a great game last game. He started, played 36 minutes. He should get more opportunity without PG. I think he's playable at 4,900. I think Marcus Morris is a pretty solid value at 4,600. He wasn't great last game, but he should start, play 30 to 35 minutes. He's still probably a little bit too cheap. I think he's in play for value. And then Terrence Mann's the guy that really stands out for value. He's only 4,400. He started last game. He's actually started the last 2 games, played 32 and 35 minutes, had 26 and 33 DK points. Terrence Mann, especially when Paul George is off the floor, he does produce at a pretty good rate. He's going to average close to a fantasy point per minute, and he's 4,400. I'd expect him to start and play low to mid 30s minutes once again. I don't know why the price tag really didn't move. Honestly, like all these Clippers guys did not get priced up at all, except like Kennard. The rest of them are way too cheap. Jackson, Morris, Mann. I think Mann at 4,400 looks like a really, really good value play today. Like him a lot on DK, and he's minimum salary on Yahoo, so I think he stands out as a very, very strong value play on Yahoo as well. These Clippers guys, I think, are definitely guys you're going to want to get some exposure to, even in a tougher matchup against Phoenix. Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, Marcus Morris, even Kennard, like they're all probably, $500 to $1,000 too cheap today. So definitely a lot to like from the Clippers. The pricing on these guys just make it to where there's a lot that stands out. A lot of my interest in this game is coming from the Clippers side. But if we do get word that Ayton's out again, I think JaVale McGee would be a really good value that we obviously just touched on. But that's it, guys. That's it for Monday's 9-game slate. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I hope it did help. If you enjoyed, please do hit the like button down below. Hit the subscribe button as well. Again, if you have not yet, check out the sponsor of the video, Prize Picks. Go sign up for Prize Picks. Use code NOAH when you do sign up, and they will match your first deposit, give you a free bet up to $100. You can take a look at what Prize Picks has to offer. You can take a look at their board for Monday night's NBA games. They also have other sports. They have stuff up for Monday Night Football. So if you want to get some action in for Monday Night Football, you can make some picks for that as well. You can mix and match sports. You can do a couple NBA picks, a couple NFL picks, and pair them together. It's a lot of fun playing on Prize Picks. I've been playing on there a lot lately. And if you guys have not checked them out yet, sign up and use code NOAH, and they will match your first deposit, give you a free bet up to $100, and you can make some picks for yourself for tonight's games. But I think that's it, guys. Best of luck tonight. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.